Hi, boys and girls. I have had a busy morning, so a couple of announcements before we read the next chapter of Edward Tulane. First of all, we had originally learned that we were going to be headed back to school April 20th. Jeez Louise. Sorry. The boys interrupted. They just want a minute to say hello. So, all right, there they are. Yes, you can say hello. There you go. Okay, so they said their hello. Anyway, back to what I was saying. We had originally said that we would try to return on April 20th. The governor of our state has now pushed it to April 29th. So, as you are finishing up your paper packets that your parents picked up at school, you now want to move into, or do more, maybe, more of the websites on, if you have a laptop, if you have an iPad, maybe they work on the phone, I'm not really sure. If you go to Freckle, I put a ton more assignments on there, so you can use Freckle like we did in school. You can go to Zern, and the only person I moved on to a different lesson in Zern was Peyton, so you can finish up the fraction lessons on Zern, and Raz Kids. So, and if you need any help logging into those three that we had used in school, I can help you. Just have your parents message me, and I will send you your information for those. And of course, I'm going to be putting on more math videos, so more math things that you can do as I teach them on the video, okay? You have to have your marker boards for that. And we're going to be finishing up Edward Tulane, and I might start another book to do videos on. So, after that, we're going to get to our next chapter of Edward Tulane. So when we last left off, Edward was off to another adventure. This time he was going with Bryce. And he and Bryce had left Bryce's little cabin because something very sad happened in Bryce's family. Sarah Ruth had passed on, so Bryce didn't want to stay there with his awful father. So Bryce said, "Come on, Jangles, we're going to head to Memphis." And if you remember, Memphis is the city in Tennessee where there's a lot of music and activity that has to do with singing and dancing. So he and Edward, or Jangles, are headed there. So let's see what happens in chapter 20. Oh, and this is a perfect picture of what Bryce did to Edward. Remember we talked about the strings? And that way he could make Edward, or Jangles, dance. Kind of a perfect thing to do in Memphis. "How many dancing rabbits have you seen in your life?" Bryce said to Edward. "I can tell you how many I've seen. 1. You. That's how you and me are going to make some money. I seen it the last time I was in Memphis. Folks put on any kind of show right there on the street corner, and people pay 'em for it. I seen it. Boys, go see Daddy. Kane, go see Daddy." Thank you, good boy. The walk to town took all night. Bryce walked without stopping, carrying Edward under one arm and talking to him the whole time. Edward tried to listen, but the terrible scarecrow feeling had come back. The feeling he had when he was hanging by his ears in the old lady's garden. The feeling that nothing mattered, and that nothing would ever matter again. So again, Edward is feeling very down, very like he has no hope. He's hopeless. And not only did Edward feel hollow, he ached. Every part of his china body hurt. He ached for Sarah Ruth. He wanted her to hold him. He wanted to dance for her. And he did dance. But it was not for Sarah Ruth. Edward danced for strangers on a dirty street corner in Memphis. Bryce played his harmonica and moved Edward's strings. And Edward bowed and shuffled and swayed, and people stopped to stare and point and laugh. On the ground in front of them was Sarah Ruth's button box. The lid was open to encourage people to drop change inside it. So if you're making that movie in your head, picture it in your head. Bryce is holding Edward, making him dance, and playing the harmonica at the same time. And then people on the street are walking by, stopping, watching Edward dance to the harmonica music, and then dropping money in. I think the part that might bother Edward is that the people were staring and laughing. So we don't know how Edward actually feels about that going on. Mama, said a small child, look at that bunny. I want to touch him. He reached out his hand for Edward. No, said the mother. Dirty. She pulled the child back away from Edward. Nasty, she said. A man wearing a hat stopped and stared at Edward and Bryce. It's a sin to dance, he said. And then, after a long pause, he said, it's a particular sin for rabbits to dance. The man took off his hat and held it over his heart. He stood and watched the boy and the rabbit for a long time. Finally, he put his hat back on and walked away. So, those two sets of people probably didn't make Edward feel very good. To be called dirty? Does Edward want to be called dirty? Would anybody? No. And then to say that he shouldn't be dancing because it's a sin, that's not good. Edward doesn't like to be doing that. The shadows lengthened. The sun became an orange, dusty ball low in the sky. Bryce started to cry. Edward saw his tears land on the pavement. But the boy did not stop playing his harmonica. He did not make Edward stop dancing. I feel sad here. Bryce is all alone. No parents with him. Nobody. He's just a kid. He's trying to earn money. And he's crying because people are not being very nice to him. They're calling his rabbit dirty. And in a way, probably him dirty too. People are telling him that he shouldn't be making a rabbit dance. It's not the right thing to do. He's sad. I feel really bad. An old woman leaning on a cane stepped up close to them. She stared at Edward with deep, dark eyes. Pellegrina, thought the dancing rabbit. She nodded at him. Ooh, scary. Look at me, he said to her. His arms and legs jerked. Look at me. You got your wish. I have learned how to love. And it's a terrible thing. I'm broken. My heart is broken. Help me. Oh, that's so sad. Now, when Edward says that his heart is broken, does he mean like you might break a glass? Or you might break your arm? Do you think that's what he means? No, I think he's broken because he feels very sad. So let's think throughout the book. When has Edward's heart been broken? Maybe Abilene, but I don't think at that point in the book he knew, because he hadn't learned what love was yet when he left Abilene. I think the first people that he loved and that broke his heart were Nellie and Lawrence. And then maybe Bull and Lucy, he loved them. And then Sarah Ruth. I think Sarah Ruth he really loved, because she loved him, and he knew that he was doing her a lot of good. So I think that's something that we can think about. We can think about how love is so good and it makes us feel so good. But then, love can be hard too, because sometimes we do get our heart broken. Yeah. Maybe you haven't had your heart broken, but maybe you have. So think about how you felt and how did you fix it? How did you fix when your heart was broken? Okay, let's keep going. Kind of funny that this lady becomes Pellegrina. The old woman turned and hobbled away. Come back, thought Edward. Fix me. Bryce cried harder. He made Edward dance faster. Finally, when the sun was gone and the streets were dark, Bryce stopped playing his harmonica. I'm done now, he said. He let Edward fall to the pavement. I ain't gonna cry no more. Bryce wiped his nose and his eyes with the back of his hand. He picked up the button box and looked inside it. We got us enough money to get something to eat, he said. Come on, Jangles. I guess maybe Bryce decided that he had cried it all out. All of his sadness for Sarah Ruth, his sadness for being alone. He just cried it all out. And sometimes that's how you fix a broken heart. You just cry it all out. So they're going to go on in chapter 21 and go get something to eat. And they're going to go to Neil's Diner. I'll read chapter 21. Now, let's remember at the end of chapter 20, Bryce says, I'm done crying. I cried it all out. Come on, Jangles. We got money. Let's go eat. So it seems like Bryce is feeling a little better. The diner was called Neil's. The word was written in big, red, neon letters that flashed on and off. Inside it was warm and bright and smelled like fried chicken and toast and coffee. Bryce sat at the counter and put Edward on a stool next to him. He leaned the rabbit's forehead up against the counter so that he would not fall. What you gonna have, sugar? The waitress said to Bryce. Give me some pancakes, said Bryce, and some eggs, and I want steak, too. I want a big old steak, and some toast, and some coffee. The waitress leaned forward and pulled at one of Edward's ears, and then pushed him backward so that she could see his face. This your rabbit? She said to Bryce. Yes'm. He mine now. He belonged to my sister. Bryce wiped at his nose with the back of his hand. We're in show business, me and him. Is that right? Said the waitress. She had a name tag on the front of her dress. Marlene, it said. She looked at Edward's face, and then she let go of his ear, and he fell forward, so that his head rested against the counter again. Go ahead, Marlene, thought Edward. Push me around. Do with me as you will. What does it matter? I'm broken. broken. Is Edward feeling better? Bryce is feeling better. I don't think Edward is. He's calling himself broken still. The food came and Bryce ate all of it without even looking up from his plate. Well, you was hungry for sure, said Marlene as she cleared away the plates. I reckon show business is hard work. Yes'm, said Bryce. So he ate all of that food. He must have been starving. All right, boys. Boys, go upstairs and see Daddy. Go find Daddy. Jackie, you go too. Go find Daddy. Go find Daddy. You're not going to go, Jack? Okay, then you sit. You sit. Okay. You want to sit? Sit down. Sit. You can be in the camera and listen to the story. Here you go. Good boy. All right. You want to listen? Okay. We'll listen to the story together. Okay. There's no doggies in this story, though. Marlene tucked the check under the coffee cup. Bryce picked it up and looked at it and then shook his head. I ain't got enough, he said to Edward. Ma'am, he said to Marlene when she came back and filled up his coffee cup. I ain't got enough. What, sugar? I ain't got enough money. She stopped pouring the coffee and looked at him. Well, you're going to have to talk to Neil about that. Now remember, the diner is called Neil's Diner, so Neil must be the owner. Neil, it turned out, was both the owner and the cook. I have to turn because Jack wants to sit up here with me. Want to see? All right, you ready? He was a large, red-haired, red-faced man who came out of the kitchen holding a spatula in one hand. You came in here hungry, right? He said to Bryce. Yes, sir, said Bryce. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. And you ordered some food, and I cooked it, and Marlene brought it to you, right? I reckon, said Bryce. You reckon, said Neil. He brought the spatula down on the countertop with a thwack. Bryce jumped. Yes, sir. No, sir. I cooked it for you, said Neil. Yes, sir, said Bryce. So, is Neil happy that Bryce doesn't have enough money? No, he's not happy. No, and I think our text detail would be first that he took his spatula and hit the counter with his spatula. And then he spoke real slow. And in the book, I'll show it to you. The author wrote the text like this. I cooked it for you. And the author put periods after every word, meaning that Neil is being very serious and not happy. Yes, sir, said Bryce. He picked Edward up off the stool and held him close. Everyone in the diner had stopped eating. They were all staring at the boy and the rabbit and Neil. Only Marlene looked away. You ordered it. I cooked it. Marlene served it. You ate it. Now, said Neil, I want my money. He tapped the spatula lightly on the counter. Maybe a character trait for Neil would be demanding, mean. I don't know. He doesn't sound like a very nice guy. I guess if I owned a diner and a kid came in looking like Bryce, kind of poor, all alone, and he didn't have enough money for the food he ate, I might just say, it's okay, no problem. I see that you don't have enough money, you look very poor, you're all alone, it's fine. Bryce cleared his throat. You ever seen a rabbit dance? How's that? Said Neil. You ever before in your life seen a rabbit dance? Bryce sat Edward on the floor and started pulling the strings attached to his feet, making him do a slow shuffle. He put his harmonica in his mouth and played a sad song that went along with the dance. Somebody laughed. Bryce took the harmonica out of his mouth and said, he could dance some more if you want him to. He could dance to pay for what I ate. Do you think Neil's going to go for that? I don't know. Neil stared at Bryce. And then, without warning, he reached down and grabbed hold of Edward. This is what I think of dancing rabbits, said Neil. And he swung Edward by the feet, swung him so that his head hit the edge of the counter. There was a loud crack. Bryce screamed. And the world, Edward's world, went black. What do you think that means? Why would the author write that Edward's world went black? We've learned throughout the whole book that Edward's eyes don't close because they're painted on. So when the author writes that his world went black, even though he can't close his eyes, we can kind of tell that now he doesn't have any eyes. And that crack would have been Edward's face. That might be why Bryce screamed. Makes me very sad. And look at where this comes in the book. So this is how much we have read. This is what we have to read. So you can tell that we are towards the end of the book. And look at what happened to the main character. So we have to think, how will the book end now that our main character, his world has gone black? So I want you to think about that, and then the next time we meet, we'll read chapter 22 and find out what happens with Edward and Bryce and how we're going to get to the final solution of this book. Okay. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, I set up some new things on our websites. Remember, we're looking at Freckle, Zern, and Raz Kids. Okay? So, the Raz Kids is just your reading and understanding of reading. Your Zern is math. And then Freckle is both. Freckle is practicing reading and understanding and some math. So those three websites are kind of covering everything. Okay? All right. Please send me more pictures of you learning, whatever you're doing. If it's something outside, if it's something in the kitchen, if it's some of your packet, if it's one of the websites you're doing some learning on, send me pictures of what you're doing. I would love to see them. All right, I miss you so much. I'll see you next time.